This is a Nice Guys Patreon exclusive.
Welcome to another NHL team season preview video as 32 teams in 32 days rolls along. Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and in this video we're talking about the Tampa Bay Lightning, a team that, as I say, won't quit the Stanley Cup playoff contention mix, and we will see if they can give themselves a chance to maybe make a run in the Stanley Cup playoffs, which has been more difficult for the Tampa Bay Lightning to do in recent years. And last year, it was clearly evidence of that. Getting knocked out in the first round by the eventual Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. You look at this Tampa Bay Lightning roster, and it's a lot of the familiar faces that you're going to see littering the top six, as we've seen the last couple of seasons. Nikita Kucherov, Jake Gensel, Braden Point, Brandon Hagel, who's come into his own here as a member of the Tampa Bay Lightning, Anthony Cirelli. But there's been some notable players that have, infiltrated this lineup up front that have made a little bit of a positive impact. Gage Gonsalves is one. Nick Paul is one. And we have seen guys like that really have a positive imprint on this team as far as some offensive production. Oliver Bjorkstrand in here with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Yanni Gourde back in the mix again for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So a little bit of depth provided on the bottom six. I think there's some hope for the younger brother of Morgan Geekie, Connor Geekie, for the Tampa Bay Lightning, who in little glimpses and flashes last year showed his potential as someone that could chip in from the bottom six forward group. Pontus Holmberg, former Leaf, gives them a little bit more of a big body presence now in the bottom six. Zemgus Girgensson. Mitchell Chaffee is someone that had a couple of moments of, wow, this guy can be a nice depth forward for you. So I actually don't mind this roster construction. To me, there's still obviously your heavyweights up front that you got to deal with, in Gensel and Kucherov. And yeah, the one thing about Kucherov is wear and tear and age, right? Is that there's going to be maybe a decline and a drop off at some point. And I will say this, that was not a pretty playoff series for him against Florida last year. And I don't want to hold that again. Doesn't mean Kucherov sucks now. He's over the hill. He's done. He's shot. I'm not going there. But I'm just saying that was kind of surprising to see how much he was a non-factor, if you will, and a little not quite what we expected from him in the playoff series last year. And then you got guys like Jacob Pelletier. Now, this is a player I think has got a lot of skill. I can't figure out how now he's been bounced around from Calgary to Philadelphia and now to Tampa Bay. But this is a guy that's got a good amount of skill in his game, and maybe it's just a matter of the right fit, the right opportunity, and the right team. And maybe Tampa Bay is going to be it for Jacob Pelletier. I couldn't help but notice, I think he scored the other night in a preseason game for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So keep an eye on him. I think there's skill. There's something there. Now, clearly, I think the defensive side of the puck is the problem that other teams have had with Pelletier's game, but he's someone that I think could make this roster out of training camp and give them even more depth up front. When you look at the blue line, it's basically a dead ringer to last year for the most part, with Victor Hedman, Ryan McDonough, the two veteran stalwarts, Eric Chernak as well, J.J. Moser, a second season with the Lightning, Emil Lilleberg, who we saw for a full season last year, Darren Radish. So it's a very similar looking six on the back end for this Tampa Bay Lightning team as last year. It's a back end that, I think in their bottom, here's the thing with their blue line. Lilleberg and Radish are serviceable. Nothing, amazing about them stands out. I think Radish actually had a pretty solid year, all things considered. Chernak is a, physical stay-at-home defenseman. But there's a little bit of a long in the tooth, aging, concern here with the Lightning D. Hedman, he's getting up. He's still a great player. Don't get me wrong, terrific. But like I said, he's on the back home stretch of his career. Same thing with Ryan McDonough. Eric Chernak is not a young chicken anymore at this stage of his career. So like I said, you've got certainly a lot of miles on the body, if you will, for some of these defensemen for the Tampa Bay Lightning. In net, it's Andrei Vasilevsky, and hope like hell nothing happens to him, because behind him you've got Jonas Johansson and you've got Brandon Halverson. So I'm not sure you want to stake your season on either of those two guys long term. And obviously Vasilevsky, the one thing we can say about him is I think there's still a lot of elite level goaltending in him. Now, has he had dips in his play at times? Absolutely. No question about that. 2 years ago in particular, it wasn't the best year for Vasilevsky. But last year, it was back to the Vasilevsky that, was putting up those elite Vezina-like numbers prior to 2 years ago. Last year, it was a much better year. He had 38 wins. His goals against went from 2.9 down to 2.18, and his save percentage went up from 900 to 921 last year. So it was definitely a better season last year from Andrei Vasilevskiy. And that's the kind of goaltending the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to need from him this year for success. I am dead neutral on Tampa this year. I don't have a strong bet on feeling for them. I certainly don't want to risk betting against them and saying the run is over as far as playoffs or competing for a Stanley Cup. You know, John Cooper's too good of a coach, I think, to kind of let that happen with all the success he's had. So I'm kind of taking a wait and see approach with this Tampa Bay Lightning team entering the season. You know, I know there's people that think this could be the year they finally miss the playoffs. Like I said, I'm not there yet with that sentiment at this point in time. That might certainly change. You could see yours truly, Ian Cameron, run into his account, one of his accounts, as quickly as humanly possible if we ever see a Vasilevskiy long-term injury for this team at some point. That could turn me toward the camp of missing the playoffs. But as long as you've got, like I said, I think the 4 lines, there's potential that you can get something from all 4 of those lines. I actually don't mind the way they're situated up front. And I'm one of the biggest Nick Paul fans in the world. You guys know that. I think he's such an underrated player in this league. And he's shown it for Tampa Bay how valuable he is. Now, the blue line, like I said, it's a little bit of age starting to show. It does concern me. And if Vasilevskiy suffers a long-term injury, everything's off the table as far as playoffs possibly. That would hurt. And I might be interested at that point in missing the playoffs. But like I said, with this coaching staff and with just the way this organization, we thought this organization we fucking lost without Stamkos last year. No, it was the Nashville Predators that were lost with Steven Stamkos last year. They still had a fine season. They still made the playoffs. You know, they only finished behind Toronto, you know, they were right there with Toronto and Florida for much of the season in the Atlantic Division race. It's too good of a coaching staff. I'm not there as far as a big drop off, a big fall off this year, but I ain't running a bet on them either going into this season. Alex, your thoughts on the Tampa Bay Lightning?
Dear viewer, now we are taping these, and I have to break the fourth wall here because it's September 24th, and this is kind of somewhat breaking news. Concerns have started to grow in Tampa Bay, where superstar goaltender Andrei Vasilevskiy has missed 4 straight days of practice. He has not been skating during training camp, which has garnered attention around the NHL with fans in the Tampa market. They're saying it's just player management. There's no immediate cause for alarm. But that freaks me out already because, like you saying, the motor of the top players on this team.
I'm not panicking about that yet, but that still raises some alarm bells, I must admit.
I am, because heading into the season before the camp, 3 weeks ago, a month ago, 2 months ago, I was saying I'm worried about Kucherov, Hedman, and Vasilevskiy, their durability. These guys have been the core of this group throughout the entire run, through the dynasty run, all the way back to 2016-17. So for the last 9 years, you've had these guys playing a boatload of hockey and have stayed relatively healthy. Now, Vasilevskiy had the injury issues a couple of years ago, but these guys haven't missed a whole heck of a lot of time. They've been playing and played through a lot of things as well. So that's the durability questions I had coming into the season already. And to see that happening with the most important piece at the beginning of training camp in Vasilevskiy, that has me worried. I'm seeing over-unders around 102, 103 points. I didn't like them to be that high anyway. I thought they were going to be in that wild card range. I felt like this could have been a team. We talk about that in this Atlantic Division. There's a lot of teams that where it's what they do in April and beyond that matter. So their regular season and their team that knows how to navigate the regular season. So I'm going to go under 102 points, under 2.5 points with that. And I'm taking a shot, something I liked before all of this news, but first round exit, plus 175. And that's something, of course, I'll be looking to add upon more once they get into the playoffs and in that series and series bets and things. But I will have a small piece of that just heading into the season because this is a Tampa Bay team as good as they are coached. Okay, it won't be on Cooper. Cooper ain't gonna make the mistakes. I don't even think it's gonna be mistakes being made. I think we're going to see this team, when fully healthy, play good hockey. But it just wouldn't shock me if the injury bug starts biting, some of these guys where they haven't in Tampa, and that's unfortunate. And you say you can't handicap injuries. Sure, of course not. But when you look at the volume of games that, especially like I said, the 3 most important players have played, at some point in time, the wear and tear adds up. Like I said, Kucherov didn't look like himself at times. Vasilevsky has shown games where he's laid an egg. He's still one of the top goaltenders in the world, but there's an argument where you could say he's not the number one goalie in the world. Couldn't say that 4 years ago. 4 years ago, he was locked up, cut and dry, and ink the number one goaltender in the world. So things change. People get older. And like I said, this is a tough division as well. So it won't be a duck walk for the Lightning, and I think they go under 102 points, and they better hope that this Vasilevsky thing is just, like I said, player management and not some growing concern, because you can't win shit with Jonas Johansson and Brandon Halverson. I'm sorry. You just can't.
I don't think any hockey fan with a reasonable mind is going to argue with you on that one. I mean, it's just a situation where, look, I mean, could they surprise and maybe play better than we think? Yeah, but they're not. You're not winning a big time long. You're not winning multiple playoff series. Hell, you may not even win one playoff series.
You won't get to the playoffs.
Starting.
Not with if you lose Vasilevsky for 50 games out of the year, you aren't going to the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, Jonas Johansson's career numbers just bear that out. How much there's been just this struggle, for him to be consistent. As far as being able to,
he's been dancing on the ceiling since he got to Tampa Bay. This is where this is his level. Back up to one of the best goalies in the league, where you only have to hopefully play 15 to 20 games.
Yeah, I would agree with that, no question. So, like I said, I think it's definitely a situation where I think we're going to end up seeing certainly this Vasilevsky news that we are just certainly anxious to see how this is going to go. This is concerning. This is definitely, it raises the eyebrows a little bit. I will say that for sure. And like I said, maybe it's minor. Maybe he's going to be fine. He's not going to miss anything. Maybe he'll be ready to go and fine for the regular season and stay healthy. But this kind of also leads you to believe, like you said, maybe there's something behind the scenes that they're not disclosing. Why would they? They don't want any competitive advantages to go against them. Like,
of course,
maybe there's some lingering injury issue that could, that could obviously reappear at some point during the course of the season. So
now, what the one saving grace, and we talked about, if there's any significant injuries long term, this is the last year of the LTIR loop. So if push comes to shove, you need to put Vasilevsky on LTIR, you will have the room and money available to try and get another goalie. You don't have to just be dead set on what you have.
No question about that. And like I said, that's definitely something they're going to have to explore. If they ever find out, Julian Breezewald finds out, holy shit, Vasilevsky's out long term. We got to get a goalie, period. End of story.
He has to be the first person to know his health status before Cooper, before anybody else. Breezewald has to know if he's got to put him on LTIR and make calls fast. And so he has to know that before anybody.
I still think Tampa's a great over team when Vasilevsky doesn't start. Because I think still their D is, I worry about the D there. I worry about their ability to defend. I worry about, odd man rushes. Are they able to get back in position, with some of these wear and tear older bodies on this blue line? I like their forward group, though. I do. Like, I think they're going to be able to even get some offense from the third and the fourth line when you consider that you're going to have a Bjorkstrand. You're going to have a Connor Geekie, a Yanni Gord, Pontus Holmberg, and who's, I think, got more offense than he showed in Toronto. He had some bad puck luck, but he's a big Peltier. What if he gets in the bottom six? He can give you a little offense. And then, of course, you've still got obviously game breakers in your top six with Kucherov, Point, Gensel, Hagel, and still a pretty good top six. So they can score. And like I said, they'll give up more if Vasilevsky is out for a period of time. So when he's out, look for overs in Tampa Bay games. It's definitely something I would be looking at for sure. All right, there you have it. Tampa Bay Lightning for the upcoming season. We will wrap things up in just a moment, right after we hear from our official smoke sponsor of the Ice Guys, our friends at Royal Cannabis.
Royal Cannabis, where the kings and queens shop.
Check it out. RoyalCannabisShop.com, 20% off using the promo code IceGuys. For Alex B. Smith, I'm Ian Cameron. This has been your Tampa Bay Lightning season preview video as 32 teams in 32 days rolls along, courtesy of the Ice Guys.